Hey, Sven here. Recently, we've released several videos on the topic of MCP, that is the Model Context Protocol from Anthropic. MCP is the kind of standard for exchanging data between systems to enable using systems within other systems. And in the other videos we've shown so far, we've always focused on the MCP server aspect. That means, for example, we have a make scenario here and offer this make scenario externally via an MCP server so that I can use it directly in cloud or other systems. Now, Make has released the MCP client, which is exactly the opposite side. This means that with the Make MCP client module, I can now tap into MCP servers and use their functions. And I'll show you how that works here in 3 different ways. First, I'll integrate our MCP server. That means, for example, being able to use something from one make and another make. Then I'll show you these already verified servers from Make, which appear directly in the selection list. We'll take an example for that. And finally, I'll show you how I can also integrate an external, freely available MCP server. I'm Sven, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been working on process optimization and quality for over 33 years, not just in business, but in all areas of life. And much of what I can do today, I've learned through experience and trial and error, and I know what really works. And in my videos, I want to show you how you can use intelligent process automation profitably for yourself and your business. And if you're not quite sure where to start, or if you just have questions, then just talk to me. Book a free call. You'll find a link for that below this video. So let's get started. On this page here, apps.make.com/MCP client, there's documentation on how it all works, but it's not particularly hard to understand. I just want to briefly go over the most important functions here. So first of all, it works via OAuth. Then here you already have a verified MCP server list that you can use directly. Then you can access all the tools that such an MCP server offers, usually without having to configure anything manually. And if you're building an agent system, you can use these MCP functionalities within the agent system. Here it also explains how the connection works, but that's basically almost trivial. We can take a look at that directly now while creating a scenario. Let's switch over to Make. And the first thing I did is, if you go here to the profile menu, then you go to API access, and here you can create a token that's just for you. You can see it's also protected here. If I now use this token in an MCP client, I can access my MCP server. I don't really want to go into detail about the MCP server right now, but I do want to show you which tool I want to integrate. In fact, in a seminar I often give where I do an introduction to Make, I build a scenario that does nothing more than generate an image with Flux Ultra, and the whole thing is triggered for you via this on-demand control. That means in order to use this tool, I need the so-called scenario inputs and outputs. The inputs here are an image prompt, so basically what kind of image should be generated. And the second one is the image format, where I can actually select landscape, square, or portrait. Then the image is generated, and at the end, the URL of the image is returned here. And now I want to integrate this scenario into another scenario, but not simply by calling it directly, rather by using the MCP client for this purpose. So I go into Make here, click on Create New Scenario, and then search for MCP. Then the MCP client appears. It only has a single module, namely this call tool. And when I add it here now, as usual in Make, I need to create a connection. I've already done that, and in this connection here, this Make connection, I've entered this token. And when I select this connection now, I can display the list of tools that are available. And as we can see here, the thing is called Seminar 6B. That means I can find it here. There it is, 6B. So the moment I select this tool here, it reads the necessary input parameters and then prompts me, okay, you need to enter an image prompt here and you need to select the image format. I've already prepared the prompt. Just something silly. Yeah, a photorealistic image of the big five in Africa. simply standing on top of each other. And well, if they're standing on top of each other, it probably makes sense to actually do it in portrait format. So, and with that, we're already done. That means what I don't have to do here is define the output parameter in any way, because it will actually be output correctly through the parsing of this little system. Let's just take a look at that now. I'll save this thing and I'll run it. And as we already saw in the other video, it takes about 15 seconds for the image to not only be generated, but also displayed. So now we just have to wait a moment. And well, what's happening here is that it's simply called this tool. And then we also see here that the result is always a JSON document, but it's also parsed. And that's why we can now see here that what is still shown as plain JSON above is now available here as parameters. So now let's highlight this link here, this URL. And if we open it, theoretically, an image should appear here. Okay, the buffalo is missing, and the lion is sitting on the leopard instead of the leopard sitting on the lion. But, well, it doesn't really matter. The point is just to try out how the whole thing works. That means the integration of my own MCP server has already worked wonderfully here. Let's continue. Now, let's take one of the existing MCP servers. That means we'll use call tool again. And if I click on add here, then the list of MCP servers will be displayed. And if we just take a look at them now, we can see that there are already quite a lot of tools here. And I thought that maybe the easiest thing would be to use Asana. Just a quick note or small point. Earlier, I tried retrieving my transactions with PayPal and it works wonderfully. I just don't want to show them because otherwise someone might try to scam me out of some money. Okay, so we select Asana, then give it some kind of MCP Asana name so we can identify it later. Then you see I don't have to configure anything here at all. The URL is entered automatically. And if I click on save now, then I have to grant permission via OAuth. So that just happened in a separate window, which is why you didn't see it here, but you know how it works. A window pops up and you just have to confirm that you allow access. So, and now the system has recognized, okay, I'm connected to Asana and here are all the tools that are now provided via this MCP server. Well, and you can already tell from the names get goal, set goal, and so on. And I just did the following. Let's just go over to my Asana here. This is more or less an empty system. And then I just created a project here and added a few tasks to it. And what we need now is this project number. That's this one here. So I can either enter it directly or maybe select it beforehand or something like that. Now let's just take it directly here. And then I select the tool here and, for example, say create task. Let's just search for it, create task. So, and now, as usual, all the information I need is displayed here again. So, for example, neue task in English, new task from make project ID. I'll enter that directly now. And as you know, I could, of course, also take it from a previous module in some way. I don't need workspace now because it's uniquely identified by the project ID. We also don't need parent since this isn't a subtask. And here we'll need a bit of HTML. Content of new task. Body. Done. There we go. So with that, we've basically just used the function of the MCP server from Asana. And if I did everything correctly and run this now run, then let's switch over to Asana. Yes, and you can already see the task is coming in. New task from make. Content of new task. That means the description worked as well. Yes, and that's how easy it is to connect an external system. If you find yourselves in these particular scenarios right now and are looking to call up or access another essential tool, then here we have, as is customary and expected, this comprehensive and readily available list of options. But in this list, as we've just seen, not all tools are included. And that's why I've set up a connection to Notion here. So how do I know that and where do I get it from? For example, there's this site here, pulsemcp.com. There you'll find freely available servers, a list of MCP servers, now already 50 or 60 of them. And then in this overview, if I've selected an example, in this case Notion, I basically get this URL displayed here. I simply copy this URL, and when I add a new connection here, I just need to enter this MCP server. So here with new MCP server, then I have to enter this URL here. And if the system requires an API key, I need to enter that as well. But that's not the case with Notion. In that case, only the OAuth dialog is automatically triggered, and then I have the connection to Notion. I'm not going to do that now because I've already selected it here. That means wait a moment. So, and if I now go into Notion here and have selected it, then the tools will be displayed for me here again. You man these tools? Well, as you can see, it's fairly manageable. Now, for example, I can search here, and here's what I thought. I'll just go into Notion here. And I've simply created a new Notion here. There are always these sample data in there. And now I've found something here. For example, it says reading lists. And that's just an example with a table. And down here now, neural networks, right? So some link to a document about neural networks. And now I just thought I'll make a query here and write, what should I read to learn about neural networks? So that means I can ask a question here in completely natural language. Query type is internal because I don't want to search for users and those other things. We don't need them unless I specifically want to search on a particular page. Of course, I could also implement that here accordingly. Then I click on save. Then let's run the whole thing here individually as well. And again here, if I did it correctly, it should return a result without any errors. Now it searches the entire Notion with this query, and then we have a result here again. The result, as you can see, is also in JSON format here. And now I can go to the past result here, and there we can see, for example, the contribution of neural networks and so on. And now I could use this URL to directly access this entry. And yes, there are still some details where I could, in a way, maybe even pass and find them directly here via this link. So that means I can search in Notion here, but I can also add data to Notion. That means, for example, here we can again use the Notion connection via the MCP client. And now let's go here to create page, and then we say here a new page, and now we say content of the new page. So for example, here we say new page created from make. Then here we also do a markdown format, content of the new page. So now I could of course add a parent here and so on, but let's just leave it at that for now. I click on save, run this module. And that was successful as well. And now I can go back to Notion here. Wait, wrong page. Here, there it is. New page created from make, content of new page. So that worked as well. What I actually want to show you with this is that suddenly a variety of functionalities and possibilities open up, which you can not only offer via the MCP server, but now also consume. And these three examples, so I use my own internal MCP server. I use already validated MCP servers that appear in Make's list, or I use any MCP server that's freely available on the internet. With that, I've gained the greatest possible flexibility. You also don't always have to use an API right away. Or as we just saw with the search, you can also use normal language to trigger certain functionalities, for example. Yeah, just experiment with it a bit, play around with it. I think it's really exciting to work with these topics. And don't forget, check out the MCP videos, which you can find in the link up here. See you next time. Bye.